you to stay for the whole thing and you want to catch the end, or there's others who may be interested, we'll have that posted up usually within 24 to 48 hours. So we will get going at the moment. So like I said, today's Coffee with the Principal is designed for you and to get some issues and topics that hopefully will be of interest to you. We are going to talk a little bit about COVID and some of the case counts that we've had here at school and some of the changes that we've seen as far as requirements and procedures. So we'll give you the latest and greatest on COVID stuff, including updates on vaccinations. We'll also talk about academics. If you've been following the news, you've seen both locally in our state and in our nation, we've seen a big drop in test scores. And unfortunately, San Pasqual is no different. So we'll talk to you a little bit about that and what we're doing about that. We'll address some safety concerns, some non-COVID related safety concerns, or things that we're doing to address those concerns, and also some general updates. We'll talk to you about our upcoming board elections, a library improvement project. We have a costume parade tomorrow, some things that PTO is doing, so we'll give you some updates on all that. But like I said, if you do have questions that are not tied to this, please put them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask them, and we can move forward. So our first topic for today is COVID. And fortunately, we've had minimal COVID impacts from students or staff this school year. For those of you who were following it last school year, you may have noticed that we have an online dashboard on our website under the resources section of our website that talks about how many student and staff cases that we have in any given month. We keep that current. As of yesterday, we've had 10 COVID cases the entire school year of either staff members or students that have been here on campus. 8 of those were school impacted, meaning that the person was on campus presumably positive with COVID, and we send out some notifications to let people know. 2 of those were non-school impacted. So at the end, by comparison, at the end of 2021, we had 11 cases. So it's a very similar, relatively non-impactful start to the school year. Welcome. Come on in. Sit wherever you'd like. Yes. So we've had very few cases, but it is similar to the pattern that we've seen last year. We're hopeful that that pattern will not continue from last year. As you may recall, we saw our biggest impacts in January and in February. And our goal is to prevent that from happening. So we have obtained 1,200 take-home test kits for student and staff use. And we will be distributing those to students to take home the week before Thanksgiving and the week before winter breaks for students and staff to use prior to their return. Because our goal is to minimize those school impacted cases. So if there is some level of community spread over the breaks, hopefully individuals will test and not return to school until they are no longer infectious. The current rules on returning to school have not changed since the end of last year. And essentially what those rules are is that if an individual, whether they're a student or a staff member, tests positive for COVID, they cannot return to school until testing negative on day 5 with symptoms improving and no fever in the last 24 hours, and they could return on day 6. So basically kids and staff are out about 5 full days before they can come back and would need to have a negative test and be feeling better before they could. If some folks test longer than others, and if they are still testing positive on day 11, they're not deemed to be infectious anymore and can return that. So if you ever have a case that you're not sure, check with Marie in the office. We can help you with that. But like I said, our goal is to maintain a healthy campus and allow individuals to come to school when they're not infectious, but to keep them home when they are. There's been a lot of talk in the news lately about vaccinations, and the talk on vaccinations was an advisory panel from the CDC made a recommendation to have vaccinations as on the required panel of vaccinations for students to come to school. And we've had some questions from our parents as far as, is that going to impact us here at school? And I can tell you, it does not appear to be so. There we go. The current recommendation from the CDC does not direct action. It just provides some recommendations for states and other jurisdictions to continue. There's not an indication at this moment that California is moving in that direction, nor is there any indication that there's recommendations from our local health department to do so. I'll keep you posted on that, but as of this point in time, there is no requirement for COVID vaccinations for students to return to school currently or for the upcoming school year. Similarly, there were changes to the vaccination requirements for staff and for volunteers and visitors on school campuses. As you may recall, last year it was required that anyone who was working with kids, any adult working with kids on campus, had to be fully vaccinated against COVID or test weekly here at the school site or on their own. That requirement has been dropped. So we do not currently have a vaccination requirement for our kids or for our adults. So hopefully that clears up any misconceptions or concerns as far as that's concerned. Any questions that anybody has about COVID or vaccinations or anything along those lines? I don't think we're seeing anything in the chat regarding that. Okay. All right, then we will move on. Next thing we want to talk about is school academics. It's nice to talk about academics. Most of these sessions have been focused on COVID and that type of stuff. So most of you have met Mrs. Z. Mrs. Z is our new assistant principal here, and she's going to slide over into the hot seat and talk a little bit about school academics.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you, kind of, this morning. So COVID obviously has had devastating effects on lots of things, and student outcomes on state test scores are also one of them. So we are taking time to recover some lost learning. From 2019 to 2022, there was a 12% decline in ELA and an 8% decline in math. Sadly, there's been declines seen at every grade level, nearly every grade level. However, our declines aren't as extreme as statewide. So just for a little perspective, we had 52% proficient in advanced ELA. Statewide, that number was only 47%. And then 47% proficient in advanced math, and statewide, that was only 33%. We've seen some increased supports for reading with the goal to improve third grade proficiency. We had a 4.9 increase in ELA in pre-pandemic levels and a 3.2 increase in math for pre-pandemic levels. And we're also moving towards a more inclusive model in middle school with more within classroom instructional supports provided. So this has seen a 3.1 increase in 8th grade ELA and a 9.7 increase in 8th grade math. So while we still have room for growth, we are trying to make steps to recover that lost learning in many ways. 3 of the ways we're doing that are with some active committees working to improve educational outcomes. One committee is our School Improvement Committee, and their focus is on professional development with a curriculum and instructional focus. And our next committee is called the MTSS Committee, and that stands for our multiple tiered systems of support. And that committee is also talking about instructional and resource alignment, making sure that every student is getting what they need, both behaviorally and academically. And then our last committee is our E3 committee, and that committee is focused on teacher effectiveness and evaluation. Those committees meet about once a month. And again, our focus is on recovering that lost learning, providing instructional strategies that are most effective. Do we have any questions? Otherwise, I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Burrows to continue the conversation on school safety. All right, not seeing any questions at this time. Feel free to put them in the chat. And I'm gonna switch seats again. Musical chairs here.
All right, thank you, Mrs. C. Yeah, the next section we wanted to talk about is school safety, because again, similar to the COVID stuff, there's been some troubling stuff in the news regarding school safety. And so we took some time this summer. I currently sit on an Escondido School Leaders Safety Committee. And on that committee, it includes the chief of police from Escondido and the fire chief from Escondido, 3 school resource officers, police officers who serve Escondido area, as well as school leaders from the superintendents of the other Escondido schools, the CEOs and principals and heads of charters and privates. And we meet about once a month and talk about safety issues. And we put some good things into place from that committee. We put our partnership with Sandy Hook Promise that has our Say Something program in there, our Start With Hello program in there. And then we also look at physically, how can we make our campuses safer? You know, what measures can we take? And so I met this summer, or we met this summer with Escondido police officers, and we walked the campus and we talked about the things that we've done. And they were really impressed with a lot of our measures that we've done already to secure our campus. We've to put the Raptor system in place to check when individuals come through their IDs to see if they're on any sort of a Megan's Law list or have any other challenges or reasons that they shouldn't be coming to school. So they were impressed with those measures that we've taken, but we asked them what else could we do? And really what they were talking about, and this was really with Uvalde fresh in their minds. We talked to them about the response we could expect from them, as well as what we can do to facilitate that. And really what they assured us, this came directly from the chief, they assured us that there wouldn't be any delay if there was an active threat on our school in their response, and wouldn't be any hesitation in taking whatever action was necessary to keep our students and staff safe. So we were very encouraged by that piece. But they did make some recommendations to us, essentially to do whatever we could to slow any active threats, to allow them to respond as quickly and as effectively as possible. And so along those lines, what we did at the beginning of this school year is we installed lock blocks on all of our classrooms. So if you've been to our school recently or into a classroom recently, you'll notice a little device that's attached to all the doors. And what that allows teachers and staff members to do is, if there was an active threat at our school, to be able to lock the classroom and secure the classroom as quickly as possible without having to go outside the class to do so. So we've installed those. They also talked to us about securing our front entryway, and suggested putting some ballistic film on the glass doors and on the glass windows in our entryway to slow, once we're in some sort of a lockdown type state, to slow anybody from getting access. And so we did that recently. You'll still see some tape up on the windows as that dries to be fully effective, but we put that up in the office. We also had a recommendation for a controlled entry system in the front, a buzzer system, to also slow entry to campus. The board approved the purchase of that. We're looking at different vendors and still in some discussions as to what that would look like and how a controlled entry system would serve our school, or potentially create some other logistical problems. So we're looking at that as well. And then the last thing that they talked to us about was increased vigilance at our campus. And so what we've done is, as you may know, we have 15 security cameras on campus. They do feed to a control panel that can be viewable at any time. But we did create a larger control panel for constant viewing during the school day in the main office. So that does increase our vigilance as well. And then we also brought in, through the help of the school foundation and the Girl Scouts, the new Watchdogs program. And that Watchdogs program encourages fathers and father figures to be more present on campus. And we have, usually in a typical week, about 2 to 3 watchdogs who serve at school. And they spend the majority of their day greeting students, present for dismissal, out for recess nutrition breaks where kids are outside walking the campus and spending some time in the classrooms as well for additional support. So we're really appreciative of the watchdogs that are taking that time to connect with our school, and do feel that it adds an additional set of eyes and more vigilance here to the campus. So we feel good about that program. And then the last thing that we're looking to do is to reform our school safety committee. Some of you, I think, on this call were part of our Safe Return to School committee, which got our school back open through COVID. And some of you may have been part of our actual safety committee, which is the one that we partner with law enforcement and fire officials, school officials, to make any of these types of improvements that can keep our kids safer. So if you have some particular skills or background, perhaps law enforcement, first responder, former military who can bring some insight to our committee, please let us know, because we'd like to have you part of that, because we are all in this. And as Mrs. Z was talking about academics, first and foremost, we want to keep our kids safe. And then we want to make them really smart while they're here. So those are kind of two things, but the safety piece is really important. So if you do want to participate in that, please reach out to me directly, or Mrs. Z or Mrs. Grassi, and let us know that you have some interest in that. On the safety front, we're just checking. I don't see any questions. Any questions on that at this point? All right. So then I have sort of a potpourri of school updates for you guys, just to fill you in on a few things. In just a week or so, less than 2 weeks, I believe, we have our school elections for school board. And as you may recall from some of these other sessions that we've had here, the election process has changed here from at-large voting to by trustee area voting. And what that means is that in the past, anybody residing in the district could vote for any of the candidates that were running for a trustee position on the board. There were some civil rights laws that went into effect that required school boards and other governing boards to switch to what's called by trustee area voting. And that by trustee area voting means that the district is now broken into 5 sections or 5 trustee areas. And the individuals that reside within those trustee areas are ones that can vote. And so I'm going to ask Mrs. Grassi to put in the link. There's a link. Do you see that link? She's going to put a link into the chat. So if you're wondering which trustee area you reside in, you can put your address in there, and it'll tell you which trustee area you're connected to. And once we get on the back end of the election, we will update that site so that it'll put the name of the trustee in there for you as well, if you're looking for it. To give you a little preview of how the election's shaping up, we have in trustee area 1, our appointed incumbent, Mrs. Go, is running against Mrs. Leggy. And that position is a little bit unique in the sense that it was an appointed position for a position that was elected when it was at-large voting. And so this will be the very final position that is elected for the remainder of that 2-year term by at-large voting. So if you reside in the district, you will have the opportunity to vote in that. Even though it's going to select somebody in trustee area 1, it's open to voting for anybody who resides in the district. The other 3 areas, trustee area 2, incumbent MERS is running unopposed in trustee area 2. Trustee area 3, Mrs. Murray is running unopposed, and trustee area 4, Mrs. Gorley is running unopposed. So we do have, like I said, only 1 current contested election, but I can tell you from personal experience, we have great candidates. So I'm super excited about the leadership and the leadership prospects for our district. And then our 5th trustee area is trustee area 5. That's currently being held by trustee Baker, who's our current president on the board, and her term runs through 2024. So like I said, those elections are coming up. If you reside in the district, please vote. We want participation in that to make the best selection that we can. And that's it on the board elections. Our board does meet generally the second Tuesday of each month right here in Trestle Hall. So we would encourage participation in those meetings as well. So hopefully you can make that. Next issue I wanted to talk about is our library improvement project. We have in the library a plan right now to replace a lot of our outdated nonfiction texts. And so we got a generous donation from our PTO to start that project. And so the PTO donated $7,000 in scholastic dollars that we've used to purchase some elementary science and social studies books. And we expect to roll those out into circulation within the next couple of weeks. So look for that. It's very exciting. The district has also pledged an additional $5,000 to continue that project. And we expect that the replacement project is going to take probably it's going to be about $25,000 for what we believe that we need to do. And so we are trying to keep some of those costs down through volunteer support. So we really appreciate, we have about 10 folks that have volunteered in the library to help us with the decommissioning of old books and the recoding of new to put those in kids' hands as quickly as possible. So if you would like to spend a little bit of time in the library, Mrs. Carroll would love that support. So we'll keep you posted on that project as it moves forward. We also have another exciting project that's going on, which is a lower playground shade structure project. And that is the installation of a 30 by 40 foot shade structure on the lower playground. That has been made possible. I know I've been at the school for a very long time, and one of the biggest complaints is lack of shade, especially on that lower playground. And the foundation has stepped forward with a huge pledge to fund that project. They earned or raised about $75,000 towards that project in the at the greatest soiree at the gala that many of you attended. And we appreciate those generous donations, and we're looking forward to keeping our kids safer on the playground and cooler on the playground as that project moves forward. So we have initiated that project, and we hope to have that done by the end of this current year. So thank you guys very much. And the foundation does want you to know that if you do pledge $5,000 or more, you get your name on the new legacy wall in Saints Plaza, which is where our donors are currently situated. Yeah, so I have a couple questions. Let me take a look at what our questions are right now. There's a question about voting, and they want to know if folks that are interdistrict transfers can vote. Unfortunately not. You'll see if you are attending on an interdistrict transfer, you will see that you will be voting for the trustees within the district that you reside. So if you're residing in Escondido, or you're residing in Valley Center, San Marcos, we have some folks from there, you'll see those elections show up. So unfortunately, you won't be able to vote in these local elections here because it's all based on residency. Yep, I think we got that question answered. Anything else in the chat at the moment? Okay. Next thing I want to talk to you guys about tomorrow is our costume parade. So unlike last year, we are not putting you guys behind the rope and separating you out. So we do invite you to come join us. It's a really fun, special day here at San Pasqual. We're very happy to bring that tradition back. We will start that parade first thing in the morning. So if you have some students that are dressing up for the parade, feel free to send them to school in their costumes. If it's a cumbersome or distracting type costume that they can't wear the rest of the day, please send them with an extra set of clothes. We do have some restrictions on costumes. We don't want blood. We can't have weapons. We don't want things that are going to scare kids. As a reminder, we have some kids here that are 3 and 4 years old. So be thoughtful as far as how those costumes roll out. We have some kids that are dressing up for one thing here at the costume parade and maybe wearing something that's a little bit more aggressive when they go trick-or-treating. So, but feel free to come join us for that. We'd love to have you here. We expect that parade will run from shortly after the second bell, which is 8:30. So we expect it to run about 8:35, 8:40, probably be done around 9:15 if you're trying to schedule something for work. But we'd love to have you here for that. And then we also want to bring up that we have an exciting event coming up on Saturday, December 10th. And that is our winter festival. And so this is taking a few of the great things that we've done here at San Pasqual. It's taking some of the ideas of the Harvest Festival that we've had before, games and activities and so forth, combining it with our Pancakes with Santa breakfast, and also our holiday boutique. So there's some exciting things. They're currently looking for volunteers. I believe there's a meeting tonight at 5:30. Is that correct or not? Yeah, there's a meeting coming up. We'll get you the specific date. But our PTO and Red Barn Arts are working collectively on this together, and excited to get some folks to help out. So if you would like to help out in that event in any way, they will not say no. So they'd be very excited to have you join us for that. And I think that's all that I have here. Oh, no, quick question thing. There has been some questions about all of the construction that's been going on at campus here. Some of it was on purpose. So some of it, when you guys may have seen last year, we put up a large shade structure on the K1 playground. So we had some construction crews out for that. But more recently, we've had a series of leaks here on campus. And those have been really really caused by a faulty regulator here on campus, a high pressure regulator. And it busted out 3 different sections of pipes here on campus. So we fixed the regulator. We fixed 2 of those leaks. One of those was over by the bike rack area on the east side of campus. One was in the middle school quad area. And then the third one that they are repairing as we speak is over by the maintenance area. So we're optimistic that that has been done. But like I said, those were not planned, but we're glad that we've been able to address them. And I'm just taking a look in the chat real quick. Okay, Winter Festival meeting is November 4th at 8:45. So November 4th at 8:45, if you would like to join the planning group on that. And we have a security question. No, thank you very much. Yeah, there's a question that kind of pertains to kids that are not in classrooms during lockdowns, and what's the procedure for that. And so typically when we go into a lockdown on campus, the first thing that teachers are instructed to do is to sweep the local area. So if we were to call a lockdown on campus, and we have some different types of drills that we go into, but if we were looking at fully locking the campus down, teachers do sweep the area, meaning that they take a look outside their classrooms and they do get any kids in the immediate vicinity into their classrooms. There are some concerns that if a student is, say, in the bathroom or far away from their classrooms, there is a possibility that they could be locked out of their rooms. Once we call a lockdown, we do tell teachers to maintain that lockdown until it's over, because we don't want to breach that area. But we also encourage teachers to have situational awareness. So one of the big changes of lockdown procedures from how it used to be and how it is now is that teachers are taught and staff members are taught that they follow the commands of the lockdown, but part of the commands is going to provide them with the location of the threat if that is known. And we encourage teachers that if they know where the location of the threat is and they know a safe passage to safety, to take that. And similarly, if there is a way to facilitate other students and their safe passage, we would encourage them to do that too. So there are some parameters we place on it. But like I said, the thing that we encourage teachers to do is situational awareness. And part of our job here as administrators is to provide them with as much relevant information in an emergency so that they can make those good decisions. We don't like to think of those types of things, but we want to think of that about them to be prepared. So I hope that answers that question that was in there. And I'm not seeing